Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 53 of 2026. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on X at OBKiev. Follow us at the Oddsbreakers. Follow us on social media / the Oddsbreakers. This episode is being brought to you by FanDuel Sports, a proud partner with the NFL. If you'd like to support the Oddsbreakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com. Click shop, become a member, pick any winning cappers to get the premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us on patreon.com if nothing else. Please visit the Oddsbreakers and become a free Picks and Telegram subscriber. I'm ready for some college football, my friends. I hope you are too. And we have a great show for you today because Josh Nunn from the Action Network, Step on a Duck, is back to talk about the American Athletic Conference. I can't wait to talk to Josh, and I'm so excited for college football. We're still about 6 weeks away, but it's creeping. It's creeping, and I'm getting pumped up, and man, keeps finding value in the market, and so does Josh. And we're going to compare notes for our wonderful breakdowns today. Now, before Josh comes on, I want to remind you, if you want to bet with us, if you want to be a member at the Odds Breakers, feel free to get one of our packages. Use the promo code Football26, and you will get $100 off any membership or half off the first month of any membership as well. Been profitable in college football and the NFL every year over the past at least 3 years. And, man, bowl season was just amazing for us at over 60%, well over 60%, hitting at a very high clip. So that was fun, but otherwise, no problems. Always free plays here. If you like listening to the Odds Breakers, at least please try to rate, review, and subscribe. That at least helps us in the algorithm and helps us bring on wonderful talent and great guests to talk about football. But I'm pumped up. So without further ado, let's bring on our wonderful guest, Mr. Joshua Nunn from the Action Network. $30 million in guaranteed prizes. Cash in this football season in Las Vegas with 3 Circa Sports contest entries starting at $1,000, all with no rake. Circa Million, 18 weeks of point spread action, 128 ways to win. Circa Survivor, pick one winner each week, last one standing wins. And Circa Grandissimo with $100,000 entry and over $4 million in guaranteed prizes. Enter Nevada, play from anywhere. $30 million guaranteed. Visit circasports.com for details. Now, I'm very excited to welcome back one of the most knowledgeable college football cappers and great friend of the show, and Mr. Josh Nunn from the Action Network. You can follow Josh on X at Step on a Duck. Josh, 5-6 weeks away? I'm feeling it, man. I'm getting real excited here. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling it too. I'm so ready to get the pads popping. We're knee deep in off-season prep, like we were talking off air, and it's fun to go through the minutia of getting ready to talk about all these teams, but eventually we put the talk aside and get the pads popping, and let's play a little football. So I'm ready for that here in about 6 or 7 weeks. It won't come soon enough.
I know. And you start so early. You've probably been ready since May. But don't get me wrong, man. You've been putting out great content constantly on X. Really love the visuals you put out. It's just fantastic follow over at Josh at Step on the Duck. So if you haven't already, make sure you follow Josh. He is fantastic. And I love college football. And I'm going to ask you this because I'm just excited to answer this myself a little bit. What makes this season, 2026, coming up here, a little extra special?
I think that there's quite a bit that is unique about 2026. We, of course, get the conference realignment with the resurgence of the Pac-12, with 5 Mountain West teams coming over to the Pac-12, joining Wazoo and Oregon State, along with Texas State, North Dakota State, and Sacramento State move up. So now we have 138 FBS teams. Yeah, you get the new rules that are implemented, 5 years and 5 years for eligibility, which will help clean up some of the eligibility issues that we've had. I mean, every year is such a special year. The regular season is so short. We spend half the year, 7 months, waiting for this great sport. I think it's the best sport on the planet. And, you only get 14 regular season weeks. Every single minute is something I cherish. So I'm excited for this season for a lot of different reasons. But it'll be unique with the added teams, the conference realignment, the new look. The MAC was so consistent with the teams that they had in their conference. They lose Northern Illinois. Mountain West goes through some change, but overall, it's going to be a fun season.
Oh, it's going to be a great season. I'm so excited. Yeah, great call on the change. There's a lot of changes, and yes, we do have 2 more schools coming up. Before it was Kennesaw State, and I think it was Jacksonville State. Did they come the same year? And then there was obviously the new ones with Sacramento State and North Dakota State coming up, which were North Dakota State especially was a fantastic FCS team. So they definitely deserve to come up. It's kind of funny, even when back in the day, like 5-6 years ago, when James Madison come up, you see them power rated already better than a lot of the other teams in their own conference. So I almost find it interesting that they're coming up and nobody drops. I'm wondering what the future of college football is going to hold, but that's a whole nother discussion. What's exciting to me about this season is how powerful these teams can be, especially up top. And I know I would say you're probably a little bit more of a small conference guy than a big conference. And I love that about you. And that just brings more value to the show and to everything because there's more value in those bets. But for me, I look at the NFL draft and I'm looking at these quarterbacks coming out and I'm just like, holy cow. It's so funny. You think that, Miami or the NFL teams are going to tank. You don't need to tank. I mean, there's so many good quarterbacks now. It's like, look, you can have the same chance with a Julian Sayin and a CJ Carr or a Archie Manning and a Dante Moore. You can have the same chance, really. I mean, there is just such amazing quarterbacks, and we have no idea who's going to come, and maybe like a Lenora Sellers or something is going to really be the real guy. You don't know what you're going to see here, and I think there's just it brings so much intrigue and power to this season. And you have Jeremiah Smith, who his freshman year was being called the best college football player, and I'm just, I cannot hold my excitement back, Josh.
Yeah, same. And, it's interesting, the NFL draft, there's a lot of studies that go into that, and I think it's real interesting to see you have about as much success of plucking a steady Eddie B-plus NFL starter in the 3rd round as you do in the 1st round anymore. I mean, the talent evaluation, there's different theories on that, and there's so much hype at the top of the board, and I think this upcoming draft class, after we get through 2026, will be interesting as you get into looking at who's going to be drafted where in the NFL. But there's a lot of talent in the college leagues, and development is interesting. It's kind of taking a step back here with the transfer portal and players not really sticking around for multiple seasons at any one school. But plenty of talent to go around at FBS, and I'm excited to get in and talk about the conferences we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. What's up, Bobby Newport? With Bobby's tuning in, we're ready for college football. And thank you. He says he's already tailed a third of Josh's bets. So very smart of him. And maybe possibly part of some of those line moves that's been happening too. How that happens when Josh has been releasing plays over the last couple of years. So that's it's always great to get ahead of that. And I probably should tip my hat to you because we went head to head on Kansas State and the line moved. I got plus money at under 7.5, but now it's even pluser money. So I tip my hat to Josh. He's winning that battle with me right now, but we'll be bringing this up throughout the season. And, it's not like one I can't say. I hate to say I regret bets. I did it for a reason, but Josh is definitely in the driver's seat right now for that one. So I wanted to mention that. But talking about teams and overrated and underrated, I think it's fun to just during the season, I love talking about because week to week, it really affects the lines on what you're betting on. Buy low, sell high. But, overrated team in college football, I just wanted to have you throw one out there, and it could be from any conference.
Well, it's an interesting conversation, and the ESPN FPI was just released. And when you look at teams and how they were rated there, there's so much love for the SEC, and there's that pairing, obviously, with the SEC and ESPN. So you get this sort of unintended consequence of them hyping up that league. I wouldn't be stunned if between LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss, there's so much hype about how talented those teams are, and it's just assumed that no matter who they roll out there, those teams are going to be 9-3 or better. I wouldn't be stunned at all if maybe Ole Miss struggles to find their footing with the new coaching regime. We saw Trinidad Chambliss just make so many heroic plays week after week after week to keep Ole Miss in situations where they were winning. Now you got a year of film on him, and there's additional time for defensive coordinators to scheme around the game plan and try to contain the edge and keep him kind of in the pocket. So maybe it's that. Maybe LSU with all of the transfers, and you look at the quarterback, Sam Leavitt, and some of the inconsistencies that he showed at Arizona State. Very, very good quarterback, but there was also an element of let's just throw the ball up to Jordan Tyson and let him make plays, or we'll dump it off to Scadaboo. Well, maybe we don't see it work so eloquently like it did at Arizona State with him coming off the injury. And with Alabama, there's just been some rumblings in camp about the on-the-field performance and how that maybe the fan base is a little unrealistic with their expectations. Maybe this is personnel losses. Maybe Alabama's the team that takes a step back. So I could see any one of those three. But regarding the FPI, there is no more overrated team in the FPI than Southern Miss. These guys, they were rated 69th overall, and they were rated as the third best team in the Sun Belt, just 3 short points behind James Madison. Absolute misread, in my opinion, given the coaching turnover, the personnel, the schedule. I don't know that Southern Miss is going to win 3 games this year, and they had them the third best team in the conference. Severely overrated, in my opinion.
Did they forget Charlie Huff left? I mean,
what did they forget that everybody left?
They're next to teams like Western Kentucky and UTSA, Army, Old Dominion. How are they looked at that good after losing pretty much every? That is, here's the thing. I checked the market, of course, and the season win total and the market aligns with what I have more than what FPI has. So FPI throws this out with a lot of confidence, and I disagree with it. And I hate to say I love what Bill Connelly does, but he's got some teams up there that I'm a little bit different on as well. And I check the market and where the season win total is because you add up, the percentage of your chance of winning, and that's what you get for your season win total. I'm a little bit closer to that. There is some I'm way off on too. And that's what we do. We bet. If we were aligned with the market, we should never make a bet. So of course
we wouldn't have a market. We wouldn't have bets. Yeah,
you'd have a market full of idiots and rich sportsbook people. That's what you would have. The people that play slots all day, right? It's a situation where, you're lining up with a losing battle if that was true. But that's what makes it great. In these discussions, great. You get ahead of this stuff and you can see it. And I'll say Penn State's a little overrated. In FPI, I don't have them in the top 20. I have them 29th. Penn State's one of the teams that I don't believe in. LSU, like you said, I'm not a big believer in Sam Leavitt. Great points about Scadaboo and Jordan Tyson. I think that they were big bailouts for him, and we don't even know how healthy he is. So LSU was also one of them. Southern Miss is definitely the big eyesore right there. But I'll even say North Texas is probably a bit high too. At -6.5. I downgraded them a lot more. They're my biggest downgrade of the year. I think I downgraded them 16 or 17 power rated points. That is a lot. And I don't have them anywhere near where FPI has. I even have Troy lower than where Troy is. So, there's a few that I am off on as well, but it's fun to talk about that. What about underrated? Let's talk about a team that should be higher that isn't.
Yeah, and before I get into it, I'm so glad that you brought up the point about the power ratings and the tolerance that you've had to downgrade North Texas severely. I'll say even 4 or 5 years ago, there was absolutely no way on planet Earth you would downgrade a team 2 touchdowns before the start of the season from the previous year. But with roster turnover, the reconstruction, changing in coaching staffs, these teams sustaining success is harder now than ever before. I actually talked to Phil Steele about this last week, but you have to have an appetite for severely changing teams in your power ratings more now than ever before. So I really like that you said that. I also have downgraded North Texas significantly. They were the first G6 regular season win bet under that I made all season. We'll get to that later, but underrated, I kind of think NC State is not really getting a tremendous amount of respect in the ACC. They're going to have the front door if they can clear some early season tests to potentially rack up the wins in ACC league play. I think there's still 30-1 out there for them to win the conference. Win total opened 6.5, which I thought was a win and a half too low. I like the quarterback CJ Bailey. I like the talent that they've got at North Carolina State. The schedule is one that lines up. I think NC State could be 9-3 or better this season.
They have a ridiculously easy schedule in the ACC too. I mean, they avoid the best teams, I believe. I have to relook at that, but I'm pretty sure that their NC State schedule is extremely favorable. So if you can just get them to the championship game, that's a hell of a hedge you're going to have being 30-1. Now, don't get me wrong. Hedging against Miami is going to be tough. So you have to understand you're laying 10 units. I mean, it might be minus 1,000. It's going to be minus 500, 600 against anybody who plays Miami, in my opinion. But still, 30-1. That's a hell of a bet you have in your pocket. And all you need to do is hedge to get a small profit, even a unit or less, and you made a good choice. So that's a great way of looking at it. Just make sure you're not betting on too many teams in the ACC, because once you do that, every one of these teams is laying a lot of juice, and you're just compiling it when that happens. So just a little advice of some mistakes I've made in my early days of betting myself. That's a great call. NC State, I think, is very underrated. So underrated for me. Oh, geez, I don't have a lot of underrated teams. You nailed it there with NC State. I kind of like Houston a little bit more than the market, I think. I think that they could be a kind of a sleeper in the Big 12. Wegman's been great over there. They returned a ton of production. If you remember, that defense is what kept them really going in the game. And, maybe they do sneak by Texas Tech. We'll see how it all pans out. And I do have Texas Tech a lot higher than most other teams in the Big 12, all of them really. But I think Houston and even Arizona, I like Arizona still. I think Fafita is a dark horse for the Heisman as well at a massive price. So those are the ones I got.
Yeah, I think Houston, they've got a proven winner at head coach. You look at Willie Fritz, he's won everywhere he's gone. He really builds the system. You get these guys with another year in that offensive system. And he even made mention of it. He didn't come here to just be 7-5 and just kind of be a middling team. He wanted to compete for a national championship. So I think there's still some significant motivation there for the Houston staff. I don't quite feel like that staff thinks that their team has arrived. Yeah, it might be this year for Willie Fritz. So I don't hate that at all, and I think that Houston is going to be really feisty out in Big 12 league play this year.
Absolutely. Well, I believe I have a bet on them in their early weeks too, but we'll get to that. Bobby's like ACC scheduling. So NC State at Virginia is their first game, but they beat Virginia last year, and we'll talk about week 0 coming up here. But Richmond at Vanderbilt, at a beat down brand new Vanderbilt team that lost almost everyone themselves. You got App State at home. You got Louisville at home. Okay, that's key. That's their hardest game, is getting Louisville at home. Then you got Wake Forest at Stanford versus Cal versus Duke versus Syracuse at an overrated Florida State team, who's overrated every year. We could have even talked about them. And then Bill Belichick, will he even be at North Carolina? And that final game for the rivalry there on November 28th. I don't even think that'll happen. I think Bill Belichick might be gone. That guy is just full of drama. And I'm not seeing teams like Miami on this schedule. That's for sure.
Yeah, no SMU.
No SMU. Yep, that's another key one. No SMU. This is
no Clemson.
No Pitt. No Pitt. And I think Clemson is a little overrated, but they're still Clemson. But no Pitt, no SMU, no Clemson, no Miami. This is a very winnable schedule here for NC State.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned the two early conference games in the first half of the schedule. They go to Virginia in week 0, which we'll get into, and they get Louisville at home. they win both of those, I mean, front door is wide open to walk into the ACC title game with the rest of the opponents on that schedule. And you're right, they catch Florida State at the right time. Catching Florida State early in the season with Norvell really highly motivated to try to save his job, maybe not. But even Norvell may not be there when they come to town when North Carolina State comes to Tallahassee. So you might get back-to-back scenarios there where you're playing with coaches that might been told to hit the road. So I think that catching Florida State at that time, catching North Carolina at that time are really important. They get a lot of winnable games the second half of the season. So keep your eye on North Carolina State.
Absolutely. And, it's funny, Bobby mentioned the schedule, too. It's like this is a situation when now there's only one conference with divisions, and that's the Sun Belt. Everyone complained about, how Indiana has it so tough and everything. And I did agree that, Indiana and Rutgers, they never had a chance because they were always in that Big Ten East. But now it's like you get these crazy out-of-whack schedules, just like this NC State one, right? It's funny. If you look at Purdue's schedule, they don't play any of the top Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. They don't play Michigan. They don't play any of the top teams, So it's like you're going to get these really out-of-whack schedules, which is fun to look at, and that's kind of how you find your sleepers a little bit to possibly.
Well, it's horrific in the Power Four leagues. It's absolutely horrific because you have these 16 to 18 team super conferences, and the ACC has actually put themselves in a tough spot because half the teams are playing 9 games in conference play. The other half are only playing 8. Mm-hmm. And so it could come down to tiebreakers that way. But it's the unintended consequence of you've got all these power conferences with 18 teams. You're only playing 8 or 9 league games. The unbalanced scheduling is the biggest part of my early spring regular season win prep. You've got to go line by line through the schedule and see who these teams have on the slate.
100%. Let's go on to the American Conference. Well, you know what? Before that, conference win totals just recently came up on DraftKings. And I wanted to ask you, I know that you like to get ahead of this stuff. I do too. But you seem to fire on quite a few bets this offseason. Any conference win totals that kind of peeked out at you?
Yeah, there was one that really jumped off the page, and I already bet this. I would recommend anyone else bet this as well at DraftKings. This is conference wins only, but Cincinnati is a big fade for me this season in the Big 12. They lose their quarterback. The defense was just atrocious, could not stop the run. Pass coverage was optional. And even the offense for Cincinnati with Brendan Sorsby last season was so boom or bust. They were so reliant on the explosive play, the quick strike score, and that masked a lot of the deficiencies that their defense had. Well, Sorsby's gone. J.C. French comes in. He was not a big play creator at Georgia Southern. I think Cincinnati and their schedule really sets up to be tricky in league play. The regular season win total overall is 5.5, but the conference win total is 3.5. And if you just go up and down the schedule of opponents with Kansas State, Arizona, West Virginia on the road, Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, Colorado is likely one that I would feel comfortable with them potentially winning. But then they close at BYU. I think it's one conference win, possibly 2 for Cincinnati. I think Satterfield is another coach with a hot seat that might be told to hit the road, as Cincinnati needs to make a decision on if they want to go in a different direction. And I do not have the Bearcats making a bowl this year. So the conference win total didn't make a lot of sense because they are touchdown favorites over Boston College. They'll be big favorites over the FCS, and then they'll be about a touchdown or 7.5 point favorite against Miami of Ohio in a neutral in Cincinnati at the NFL Stadium. But then where are the other 3 wins coming? I just do not see it here. I've got Cincinnati underdogs in all but one conference game this year, so I fired away under 3.5 conference wins for Cincinnati.
What a great play. I totally agree with you. I mean, Boston College is going to be some of the worst you've ever seen this coming year. And, yeah, of course, Miami, Ohio, you're going to be favored against them. But I'm still not going to give them a win. Like that's something, if you're, looking at that, you're like, best team in the MAC, maybe Miami, Ohio. Yeah, I'm not going to give them that win right now. But, no, I don't think there's anybody that they even compete with this year, especially after 3 wins in the conference. This is an easy no-brainer. Minus 120. You're only laying minus 120 here at DraftKings. What a fantastic play. I agree with you. I'm going to be making it as soon as this show is over. Let's move on to the American Conference then, what we're talking about. And I love this conference because I always believe, minus if you take out Boise State, that this conference is really the strongest conference out of all the group of 5, group of 6. Now, let's start with a little breakdowns then. How about Army? The Black Knights are coming in, and, you still have the option there. And Jeff Monken just he's well liked there. And they return a ton of offensive starters, a few on defense. Army's kind of on the lookup in the market this year. What are your thoughts on Army?
I think that Army really struggled last season after all the production that they lost, concluding 2024. And we saw Army in games where they were just struggling to identify who their guys were that they could count on. Noah Short was a really explosive slot back, and he's not here this year, but he was a guy who battled a few injuries. They weren't as potent running the football. They were very reliant on quarterback Helms after he kind of split reps with the backup halfway through the season. And it was just jerky. It just was a team that was void of an identity. Well, this year I think they have that offensive identity. I really think they have a really solid running back. I don't know. I'll butcher the last name, but God's Power Nawahu, I think, is a really solid player. Cale Helms, another year in the system. Army is a team along the offensive line that I like what they bring back along the offensive line. The defense is kind of one where it's just going to be what it is because the portal's a one-way street. You don't get a lot of the defensive talent coming in. I think they'll be serviceable in AAC league play. The schedule, I think, is one that's conducive to providing quite a few wins. I mean, you'll get a real early test at home against South Florida, and I think it's good to get that test early because South Florida is going to be working through some changes and trying to figure out their personnel. The road games aren't too terribly challenging. You go to Temple, which will be a fun battle. You go to Tulsa and Memphis back-to-back, and that's, I think, where the season hinges. But I think Army's a team that one of about 8 teams that I think can win this league. I think that it's a team that will have significant chances to exceed their win total. I think it's going to be a strong bunch this year. So I faded Army last year. Army's a team I want to play this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I always caution to any option team. The first game might want to avoid them. The very first game, you saw what happened last year with Tarleton State. But this is a situation where after they have Bryant this year, that's a win. They're going to win that game no matter how bad they fumble from that option game. Getting South Florida is a perfect time to get South Florida. This is the time you want South Florida with all the change because I think South Florida is still a massive contender in this. And they still were able to, get to a bowl game, a big win against UConn. And you saw what happened when Army did lose to Tarleton State. They went to Kansas State and they beat Kansas State. They beat a very good FBS team and, power team, I should say, both FBS, but still great situation for Army coming on in. Love the returning production. Charlotte 49ers. This is one that I would probably say to skip, but you probably have something nice to say about them, don't you?
Not overly. I thought that the move for Tim Albin, it was so strange. The guy could have done whatever he wanted, and they would have built statues of him outside of Athens, Ohio Stadium. And I was really surprised that he left to go to Charlotte. Now, there's more money infused into the program, but Charlotte is situated in a college football hotbed with the Research Triangle in Raleigh not far, App State's up the road, East Carolina. You got some Tennessee schools not far, all the goofy South Carolina schools and a lot of FCS. So they kind of get lost in the shuffle there, and it's an NFL town. I just wonder how much buzz could possibly be fabricated from this program to really get people excited about it. I think that the roster, he walked in and the cupboards were bare, and it was really a tough situation when he walked in. I really think this is another year where it's kind of a reset year. I don't know that there's a tremendous amount of winnable games on the schedule. My power ratings only have them as 14-point favorites over the Citadel, which is a really bad FCS program, another military school in South Carolina. And I just don't know, when you got to go to Ole Miss, you go to App State, you have Louisiana Lafayette coming in, you're not going to really establish a tremendous amount of program momentum in the non-conference. And then look at the league schedule. Memphis is on the schedule, Temple on the road, Tulane, East Carolina, Tulsa, Navy. I just do not see any chance that this team makes a bowl game. I think they struggle to win 3 games. It's just one where maybe Tim Albin can use these in-game situations to try to figure out his personnel, figure out who's going to play at quarterback. Last year, Charlotte was so up against it because the defense was horrific and they played 4 quarterbacks. They just could never develop any consistent rhythm offensively, even though all 3 or 4 quarterbacks showed some flashes of brilliance. They never really had the consistent rhythm. And when you get those guys in the huddle and you got to have it 3rd and short, 4th and short, and you don't have a quarterback that can rally the troops and say, we're getting this, we're going to go down the field and score, we're going to win this game. You have 3 or 4 different voices trying to say that. It gets lost in the shuffle. So I think Charlotte's in for another tough year. I passed on the win total because it came out 2.5. I think 2-10 is probably right for them.
Their win total is under 2.5 minus 150. Okay. My number that I have on Charlotte is embarrassing. I have 1.01 wins. I
have 2.21.
You're way higher than them on me. I have them as one of the worst teams, and I'm trying to find where they're going to be favored. I don't have them favored, except for the FCS opponent. Maybe is the only time I have them favored. I mean, Temple's better this year. North Texas is still North Texas. I mean, I don't App State and Louisiana. I don't see any wins. Ole Miss definitely not. UAB maybe, but I still have them. I still have UAB quite a few points better than them. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I will say this too, as far as we talked about the unbalanced schedule in the Power 4 leagues, you get a little bit of avoidance with that at the G6 because the Pac-12, everyone plays everybody. The Mountain West and Conference USA, you only miss one opponent. The Sun Belt still adheres to divisions, so you play everybody within your division, and then there's a couple of crossovers. But in the MAC and also in the American, it's really important to try to assess the scheduling. Charlotte does play my 5th strongest American schedule this season, and so you have a team that's devoid of talent. They're still trying to search for some identity. You play a tough schedule. It's just going to be really hard for this group. There could be some situations if they're catching 26.5 at some teams where they could be good against the number. But as far as straight up wins, I think it's really going to be tough this year.
Yeah, absolutely. What did I write? I wrote tough year for Tim Album. They returned some trenches on offense, but is that a really good thing with 0 division wins? They had no division wins, no conference wins last year. Connor Harrell maybe too injured to ramp up. Cole Gonzalez gets the nod, right? I wrote down when I did my research on this team, I just couldn't find a lot to like. So that's just going to happen, obviously, in this situation. I cannot believe I have a 1 win total in this. I didn't even notice that. Tulsa Golden Hurricane. And what's funny about Tulsa is I was actually like somewhat surprised last year, of course, when they had that big win against Oregon State. But, I think they could be in the right direction with Trey Lamb there. I know he went 4-8, but that was his first year just trying to completely fix this program here. They did lose some guys, but Baylor Hayes is back. At quarterback. What did I write? Solid returning production on both sides. Putrid year, but I think Hayes has kind of impressed me at quarterback a little bit for what he went with. If the defense improves, you kind of have like a ATS sleeper type situation is what I wrote.
I think you absolutely have an ATS sleeper situation. Tulsa was much better than 4-8 last season. They should have beat New Mexico State. They should have beat Army. They had a chance to beat Tulane. Ended up losing by 17, but they were toe-to-toe with Tulane for 3 quarters. They had so many chances. East Carolina, I was actually at the game live when they came to East Carolina, and in that first half, they were just shredding East Carolina up and down the field, had some red zone turnovers. But I think Tulsa is a team that is one that could significantly outperform expectations this season. The schedule's not overly challenging. They play my 4th easiest AAC schedule this year. I think there's plenty of winnable games. The non-conference provides some unique ones when they host Oklahoma State, who will be motivated to dish out a little payback for last season. And then they got to go to Arkansas, who's not going to be good in the SEC, but they will be much better than Tulsa will, top to bottom talent composite. But there's a lot of teams on this schedule that I think Tulsa can beat, and I won't be surprised not only if Tulsa makes a bowl game, but between Tulsa and a few other teams, I think Tulsa is a team that, if they beat Navy on the road, if they happen to upset a team like UTSA, Tulsa could be playing meaningful football in November regarding the conference. The problem is they go to Navy, they go to Tulane, and they go to UTSA. And if any of those games were at home, I think that Tulsa would be a more viable dark horse to win this league.
Yeah, going to Navy and Tulane and UTSA, those take them out. and so I don't think it's worth the future bet. But I thought about it. Don't get me wrong. I thought about my numbers: 5.31 wins, under 5.5 is -125. So I'm kind of in line with somewhat of the market's thoughts. But I'll be ready to make an adjustment on them as soon as they're ready to show me. But of course, I lied. I said I was going by alphabetical order, and then I jumped to Tulsa. I don't know how the hell I did that. East Carolina Panthers coming here. That's the next one we're talking about. Blake Harrell. His record at the school is 14-5, and what a great job this man has done. Mitch Griffiths, it looks like possibly at quarterback, or it might be Emory Williams transferring him. Maybe you can give us a little more light on who that's going to be.
I think it's pretty split right now. I wouldn't be stunned if it's Emory Williams, and I think he's a good talent. Didn't see a lot of him at Miami. I think this is a place he could potentially shine. I think it's really hard to try to replace the production of Caden Hauser. He was such a great quarterback who took a step last year in cutting down the turnovers, had full command of the offense. It was really a fun offense. I think that there's a couple of things going on for ECU, and this is a team that I wanted to go under on, and I just absolutely could not get there for several reasons with ECU. The schedule is the easiest schedule that I have per my metrics in the American Conference. They avoid a lot of the big teams at the top. They play a bunch of teams at the bottom. They avoid Navy, UTSA, and Tulane, and they get 5 of the bottom 6. I am concerned about the quarterback play potentially tapering off, and the O-line is actually a concern. Phil Steele has these guys as the 13th best offensive line in the conference, only better than Charlotte. You just don't win conference championships with poor offensive line play. So there's certainly work to be done there. They lose the coordinators on both sides, which is key. I think Blake Harrell is a very, very good coach. He's a coach that completely engages the locker room. You get a lot of motivation. ECU plays. It's a proud bunch. It's a spirited group that really has a loyal fan base, and they play very, very hard for that fan base. I think this is another team that is able to contend. It was a team I was wanting to fade, but I can't fade them with that schedule. They play the easiest schedule in the conference. Rice, UAB, Temple, Charlotte, FAU. I mean, there's so many winnable games. And even in the non-conference with the regional foes, Old Dominion, App State, North Carolina Central. Matter of fact, I have East Carolina as an underdog of greater than 3 points only one time all season, and that's the opener at Alabama. Every other game, they'll either be favored or only dogs of +2.5 or less. So this team could go 6-6, and my gut could have been right on the under, or this team could be 11-1 and playing for the conference title. It's that volatile this year for ECU. It's going to be a fun group. It's a group I'll look to play week to week, but I did not get to the window on any sort of conference features yet.
Yeah, I have them 2.5 points against South Florida as a dog, and that's at home. But otherwise, I have them favored in every single team game, including Old Dominion. I obviously Alabama, you don't, but you're right. I look at this schedule. I'm at 8.35 wins. I'm like thinking to myself, how is my power rating in the negatives here? And how they get into 8.35 wins, but there you have it. But there's a reason I didn't bet over, because over 7.5 is -105, and you already mentioned it. It's the offensive line. They return no offensive line. I can't put a lot of trust into that. And I wasn't a big Emory Williams guy. I wasn't. I didn't think he was as good. And there's a reason why he didn't start there in Miami. I think we have to kind of hold tight, because this team, if you remember last year, was a bully. And I ate crow when I bet on them last year against BYU. I thought they were going to keep it close to BYU. What they did is they put up a lot of yards against BYU, but they just couldn't do anything in the red zone. So I was like, misleading score, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is BYU just tightened up defense. They let them down the field and just smoked them. And it was a tough loss for me. But, whenever they went up in competition, they lost by a decent amount. 7 to Tulane. They lost by like 30 to UTSA last year. So that's what they were. They were a bully. They would smoke the other teams, and then when they finally faced a real competition, they swallowed their tongue. So we'll see if that changes this year, but I can't get on the over, even though they have the easiest schedule. Florida Atlantic Owls, and Zach Kitley is back here to try to get Van Veldkamp, or whatever his name is. Let me see what his name is. Caden Veldkamp. Get him going again. Funny about this team, they're a very fast-paced team. We had a discussion on the phone earlier about how I'm still pissed that I lost that over against Maryland. They only put up 7 points last year. I still expect a very fast pace of play here, But I don't really expect them to be that competitive in this conference.
It's really hard to say. I think that FAU will take some steps defensively in the second year in the system. I think the defense was so poor last season. They do return a decent amount of production. And I thought along the defensive line, they actually got some transfers that can provide some depth, something they struggled with so badly last year. I think FAU bought into the offensive system, the pass-happy scheme, and the frivolous flippant, go for it on fourth down, have no regard for trying to put points on the board, don't care if it's 4th and 8 from our own 42, we're going for it. And they did so much of that. And I think if they scale that back a little bit and start to manage the in-game better, they'll see a lot more wins than the 4 and 8 that they saw last year. I think FAU could be a real sneaky contender in this conference. The reason I have not bet that yet is that the schedule is the second hardest AAC schedule that I have this season, which in part is why I only project 5.5 wins. But they do get a lot of the tougher teams at home. Navy's at home, South Florida at home, UTSA at home. And so if there's any chance that this defense has improved incrementally, you get another year in the system for Veldkamp. And, Easton Messer out of the slot is going to catch 110 passes this year. He is such a weapon. And if they get a couple other receivers to kind of emerge, I think this passing attack is one that could put up 35, 38 points a game. And FAU is going to be in a ton of high-scoring games once again. I like this team. I'm not quite ready to say this is the team that's going to surprise. But it's them, Temple, and Tulsa. I think one of those teams, I won't be surprised if they're playing real meaningful football in November. So I'm kind of a buy on FAU. I really want to play them week to week, and I want to bet their overs and team total overs.
I'm low on FAU. I'm at 4.33 wins, but here's the problem, and I won't go under 5.5. Plus money here, you're like, well, Kiev, if you're at 4.33 wins, why aren't you going under 5.5 plus 125? And trust me, I'm still thinking about it. But I didn't because the 4 easy wins are just too easy. That FIU at Monroe, Rice, and Texas Southern. I don't think Rice is going to improve that much. I call that 3.5 easy wins. Maybe North Texas is so bad they get that. Maybe East Carolina's just at the end of the season, they got their 6th win. It was a tough season. They just throw away the last game. I can see them getting to 6 wins just based upon the fact that their schedule's so top heavy that it's also bottom heavy. There's not a lot in the middle there. I think that East Carolina could be a win at the very end and take me over that. But no, I'm still considering it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not there. And what you said about them, you're a little higher than me on them. What about Memphis? How about another team that lost a lot, but then you gained Charlie Huff and the Southern Miss? Did these guys just go from Marshall, Southern Miss to Memphis? Is that what they did, Josh? That's some serious musical chairs right there out there in the deep South.
Yeah, I don't think he brought as much talent from Southern Miss over. A lot of those guys graduated after going to Southern Miss, and so I don't think we'll see as much of that rock-solid Marshall type of defense from 2024 come over. And there is a lot of staff turnover and roster turnover, and I think Memphis, they've earned the benefit of the doubt because of what they've done in prior seasons, and they're consistently a player in the AAC, but this is a much different team, and there are so many just unique schedule spots. Going out to UNLV will be very tricky to open the season, and then they have to go back out there to Boise State. I think that's a lay down and die spot. If you're looking for an against the spread spot to back Boise State, it's after Memphis plays regional foe Arkansas State, then they've got to go to Boise. I'm going to fade Memphis during that. There's other tough games at Tulane. They play East Carolina at home and Army at home back-to-back, which will be tricky. They go to South Florida. They go to Navy, and then they play Temple at the end of the season. And I think Temple is a team that we saw improve toughness. We saw a significant talent increase in the trenches for Temple. That's not going to be easy as well. So I actually played Memphis under 7.5 regular season wins. I got it at minus 102. I think we're good up to minus 130. I think it's 7-5 or worse for Memphis this year. I like Charles Huff. I think there was a couple of things that aided him substantially last year. He was changing teams in the same conference. He had some familiarity with the opponents. He had 40 players from Marshall that came, I think 17 starters that came to Southern Miss. There was so much of that Marshall talent that followed him. Not as much of that. Still a handful of players that come over, but not as much of that. and it's going to take some time to try to figure it out. They're undecided between Aaron Nolan and Marcus Stokes at quarterback. You lose some of the receivers. You lose some of the running back production. I think it's just a step back. I don't think they're going to be garbage, but it's going to not look the same as it did over the last 5 or 6 years for Memphis.
Under 7.5 at -105. You can check all kinds of books. My friends at FanDuel especially, they have some of the best odds in the nation. But right now I'm seeing under 7.5 at 1.5. I'm at 7.00 wins. And I'm thinking, how does this team get to 8 wins, The fact that they're at South Florida and at Navy and home against a better Temple team at the end really hurts. At Tulane, you got Army, you got East Carolina. At Boise State, no, I'm not. At UNLV, aren't they favored in this game? I think that this is going to be a tough one for Memphis to get over the hump. And I like Charlie Huff, but Charlie Huff is a 7-win coach. You never see him completely destroy it. I like Huff, but I don't like him in his first year at Memphis. That's a great one. I'm joining you with that one. So thanks, Duck, for giving that one out. And you have some fans here. 20MC, Duck's the GOAT. Dude works his tail off. I agree. He definitely works his tail off.
Thank you.
And Bobby, we'll get to Old Dominion, my friend. We'll get to Old Dominion. I got something for you when we get to Old Dominion. But no disagreement here. I'm pretty sure we align on Memphis. Let's talk about Navy. Navy, obviously, the other option team that's over the past has run a little bit different. They're a very good American team, but and this is just kind of what I wrote. They just could not get it done against North Texas, and we thought they were going to make the title game maybe, but they had an easier schedule last year. I don't expect this team to be quite as good because of everybody they lost. Isaiah Bryant might be a quarterback there. I'm looking at there's also Braxton Woodson, right? So there's a few guys.
Woodson and Jackson Gutierrez, I think, are neck and neck, and it's a closer race than you might think.
Okay. So there's 4 guys there that are actually competing for the job, and I don't know, man. I like Navy. I don't love Navy this year, and I do think their schedule was very easy. Notre Dame obviously embarrassed them. They did get by South Florida, but that was at home. Memphis got a quarterback injured, I believe, when they played Memphis. So I'm kind of remembering that from last year.
Yeah, they always play Memphis tough. There was a couple years ago where Memphis was one of the better teams in the group of 5, and they went to Navy, and Navy outscored them. Navy thoroughly handed them their ass last season. It was like the day after Thanksgiving, I think, or maybe it was on Thanksgiving Day. But Navy was a team, again, that I really wanted to fade. I wanted to fade Navy because you lose Blake Horvath, you lose Eli Heidenreich, you lose Chapman. Alex Teska, the fullback, was such a force. When it was 3rd and 5 and you had 2 plays to get a first down and you knew you were going to hand the ball to Alex Teska to start and then you were going to run some option with Horvath to get the 4th down and stay on the field. They had so many consistent senior-led pieces of this offense that were reliable pieces, that it was, you're in the trenches and you're trying to get something done here on offense, and you knew exactly what you had, and it was just such a no-brainer. This year, you don't have that. You're getting a new quarterback, whether it be Gutierrez or Braxton Woodson. Woodson's a name that many people will know because he did play a decent amount the last couple of seasons. But you got to replace the fullback. You got to replace the slot backs. I like the fact that Drew Cronick is still there, and he's still in that sort of wing T hybrid system with a few option principles. I did find it interesting that Newberry did not hire a DC, and he's going to take over the DC duties himself. So I certainly hope he has enough bandwidth for that and he doesn't get overextended, because that is something that could come up later on this season. Navy is another team I wanted to fade, but they play my 13th, they play my 13th toughest, which is second easiest. I don't know why I said it that way, but second easiest schedule in AAC league play. And so then you play you play Army, which is not a conference game. That's a non-conference game. You get Air Force, you get Notre Dame, yada, yada. But I think we'll know right away with Navy on if this team has legs. They go to FAU. I think the pass defense is going to be really bad for Navy. They'll be tough in the front 7, but their pass defense will be bad. I'll be interested to see how that goes at FAU in week 2. If it looks like everyone thinks it's going to look, then Navy will probably be okay. If they struggle with FAU, then it could be a long season. You got to go to UTSA. That's a spot I think they could get destroyed. And it's a real tough spot hosting North Texas, who I'm down on, but you got to come back and host North Texas, who's off a bye right before you play Notre Dame. Then you go to Temple. Just some tricky spots in the schedule here. I think Navy will end up being a fairly strong team, but I'm not willing to bet on them to win the conference with this, some of the stuff they have going on here. And I was looking to bet under a win total. I wanted under 8.5. I didn't get it, so I passed.
Yeah, if you want under 8.5, you're laying minus 190 right now, which is a lot. And I mean, I'd still do it if I had to. I don't, and I have laid that for other teams. But that if you want, you can parlay some of these too. You know, there's some new rules at different books if you want to just put that with something else. In Mason Bryant, thanks for checking in, Mason. Outside of Notre Dame, no for sure losses this year, but man, they lost so much with Horvath, Henderreich, and much more. And yes, I misspoke. I don't know why I wrote this wrong. Isaiah Bryant's a slot back, but they're replacing 2 slot backs, from last year, and that's why I corrected myself with Braxton. But no, this is a tough schedule, and if they lose to Florida Atlantic, holy cow, are they going to be in some trouble? You have to remember when I called them overrated. They beat teams like a bad Air Force team last year by 3 points at home. They beat Temple by 1. They beat Florida Atlantic by 10. Rice, how bad was Rice last year? They beat Rice by 8 points. I thought they were
tied at the half with UAB.
Oh, tied at the half with UAB was awful. Yeah, and they got
Temple by 1. Yeah, it was a lot of good fortune as opposed to necessarily being a great team.
And you knew they were beating Cincinnati when Cincinnati had nobody playing that game. It was just they're just too many fraudulent wins here. Under 8.5 minus 164 at FanDuel currently. Look at that, Mason helping out our friends at FanDuel. Thank you, Mason. Yeah, that's even a better number, and so I'm gonna write that down. I'm a little bit more into 164. I can get on board with that. So you ain't getting the 9 wins. Forget about it. All right. And they have 12 games, not 13, right?
12.
Yeah, because they've had 13 in the past. So be careful. Let's go to the next team. And North Texas. I mean, do we have to even – I see 0 returning starters. Neil Brown is resurrected from the dead coming in. I love North Texas last year and everything they did on offense, but that offense now belongs to Oregon State. And this is like me and you talked about before. This is my biggest downgrade, 16 or 17 points. I downgraded them this year. So I'm very low on them. And so is the market because I align more with the market than FPI.
Yeah, I do too. I think it'll be a struggle to make a bowl game. Under 6.5 was the first G5 regular season win that I submitted this year. I still like under 5.5. It's going to look nothing like what we saw last season for North Texas on both sides of the ball. One thing I was excited about with North Texas last season was the influx of talent that was brought in defensively from Sam Houston State when Skylar Cassidy came over. All of that talent is gone. Everybody who contributed on offense is gone. It's going to be such a struggle implementing new schemes, having the new players trying to figure out what you've got with the roster. And your opening assignment is at Indiana. Good luck with that. It's going to be really tough there. UNLV comes in at Texas State. I think it's 0-3. And then from there, where are you going to you go to the drawing board and you get an FCS game. You maybe try and work out some of the kinks, and then immediately right back into it. You got to go to Tulsa. So maybe they get Charlotte at home and you're 2-4, but even so, then some of the tougher games at Navy, at UTSA, at Tulane, there's just too much up against it for North Texas this season to really get any momentum going. The schedule is tough early. The schedule is tough late. Too many tough road teams. Too much moving pieces in the wheel here for me to try to get on board with these guys. I think it's a really, really tough season, and it's just sign of the times with the transfer portal and all of the ability to come and go as you want to. Sustaining success is harder now than ever before, and I did have tolerance as well in downgrading North Texas. It's going to look nothing like it did last season.
Absolutely. And Bobby, thanks for bringing up the Navy's wing T. That's what I was stuck in my mind, but I'm not in college football form right now, so thank you. The problem I have with North Texas is win total is I can see them getting to 6 wins because I do see them beating a terrible UAB team later in the season. I see them beating Rice and I see them probably beating FAU, and I have them favored at those games, and I have them favored obviously against the FCS opponent and a little bit against Tulsa. That's a little bit more coin flippy. And Charlotte. Sorry, Charlotte. So, I mean, 5 games I have them favored in. Can they sneak one against Navy? I don't know. You know, I think 6.5 is a great number that you have. I think fantastic job. Way to sniff that out right in the beginning here. But it's one of those teams I'm going to probably fade on a week-to-week basis for good old North Texas Neil Brown. Rice. I mean, every time I get to Rice, they're like the forgotten football team to me. Now, you figure being in Texas there, they should be a little bit better than what they are. They're kind of like the redhead stepchild between UTSA, North Texas, you know, and the smaller Texas team, Texas State. You know, it's like it seems like people that, you know, trying to play college football forgot about Rice too. I don't know what they're doing over there. And Scott Abel, I mean, 5-8 actually wasn't the worst record, and somehow they did play a bowl game. They got to opt in, right, against North Texas State. This is what happened. With
5 wins, they were the one because of the academics. They got selected.
Yep. Now I'm remembering. So, what I wrote about them is stay away. There's just so much variance with Rice because there's just. I mean, it would be a miracle if they got to 3 or 4 wins, in my opinion. I don't have them. I mean, Houston Christian is probably a win, but then at Notre Dame's a loss. Western Michigan's a loss. At Fresno State's a loss. I don't see another win here on this whole schedule.
I actually think Western Michigan's a win, and I'll tell you why. Last year, they were implementing such a unique offensive scheme, and it was a 180 compared to what they were accustomed to doing with their previous pass-happy offenses. And it's the inverted gun option is what Scott Abel runs. He ran it at the FCS level. And you have upwards of 4 potential ball carriers that could possibly carry the ball on any one play. The quarterback, fullback, you could hand it to a receiver. They do run a lot of pre-snap motion, and there's a lot of window dressing. So it's just a lot of verbiage and language to try to get right. It's a lot different than what they were running before when they were throwing the ball all over the field. And they also do some unique things with their offensive linemen where they don't have a traditional left tackle, left guard, right guard setup. They can flip those depending on the type of plays they call. So the point being is it takes a lot of time to upload the system and get everybody acclimated to it. You get a second year in the system here. I think the offensive line play will be much more just consistent as opposed to some of the things that we saw last season. I actually think the defense will take incremental steps forward. They're not going to be great. They're not going to contend for the conference. But Western Michigan loses everybody on their defensive line and everybody in the 2 deep, and they are really going to be up against it stopping the run, and they're going to have to travel to Houston in the heat before a highly anticipated matchup with Boise State, the Battle of the Broncos. I actually think Western Michigan loses that game at Rice, and I think Rice could be fairly feisty. I think they can run the ball on East Carolina. I think they can run the ball on North Texas. I think they'll be able to run the ball a little bit on FAU. So, man, maybe 4 wins or 5 wins. I didn't bet over the win total, but I would bet over 3.5. And I think these guys will be much more competitive in game situations. So, not at Notre Dame. That'll be 66-10 or 66-3. But when they are catching 3 or 4 touchdowns in league play, Rice might be a team I look to back this year.
Whew, that's a tough. I do. They do run a very option heavy type. Who is quarterback? Is it going to be Ja'Cory Brown from Miami or Ochoa from UNLV? Who's starting here?
I don't know, and I don't think they know either. I think it's still TBD. That'll be one to watch in fall camp.
Yeah. Okay, so that maybe I'm a little too high on Western Michigan. I'm at 2.43 wins, so I could get plus money if I decided to go under 2.5. But you're right; they could be a little bit more rejuvenated this year, and maybe they sneak a couple wins. I just think Houston Christian is the only one that I could see, minus what you said about Western Michigan. But where's the next win? Tulsa? It would have to be Tulsa. It would have to be Tulsa at home or at FAU, but that's it. North Texas.
Well, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Rice does, per my metrics, Rice plays the 3rd hardest schedule in the conference. South Florida is the hardest. FAU is number 2, and this is number 3. So I mean, it's murderer's row as far as the conference schedule is concerned once again. So, and they're not going to Fresno State and winning. So, I mean, wins are going to be tough to come by. I think when you look at trying to project out, I project right at 3.55, but you pull one upset, you're at 3. So, yeah, it's not a lot of winnable games on the slate.
Yeah, when it gets so low in these, it just can take a complete accident to win. Like maybe Army is decimated at the end and they don't care no more. I mean, well, I should never say that about Army. Never mind. They always care. Temple. Maybe Temple's decimated at the end. It's just a situation where it's going under like that. Used to work with Kansas in the Big 12, but it doesn't work all the time. South Florida. So South Florida is an interesting because here's what I love, man. I love their coach, Brian Hartline. I think that was a great hire. I think it's a perfect situation for him, getting to start from zero. I know South Florida had all that cred, and, man, they should have been the ones to play the championship game, right? It should have been them. I think they would have won it. I thought they were the best team in the conference last year. Here's the thing with South Florida. I think that this is my long shot, and it's not even that long of a shot, but I did get 8-1 for them to win the American. I just think that Hartline is that good of a coach, and he brought some dudes with him from Ohio State that's going to hopefully, obviously, there maybe not be a starter at Ohio State, but they can kind of resurrect this team and get them back to where they need to be. Trying to find my notes on them. Didn't return much, clearly. But, I think there's just enough guys that they got in the transfer portal. This team ranks 54th in the 247 transfer portal. That's very high for a group of 5 team. I mean, for example, Iowa State ranks 60th. Okay. Iowa ranks 50th in the 247 transfer portal. So I think they kind of rebuilt that way. And, Michael Van Buren, is the quarterback? Yeah, I think, what's funny? I thought he was better than Nussmeier last year for LSU. I kind of did. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think there's some things that should probably be cleaned up with this team with Hartline coming in. I think they'll make less pre-snap mistakes. I think the penalties will be lower. I think some of the undisciplined style with some of the careless fumbles and some of the things we saw last year come back and haunt them in games will probably be cleaned up. What I really want to know is this. I think the pace that their offense is going to play at is extremely important here. When Hartline was the OC at Ohio State, they were among the slowest paced teams in the entire country offensively. Very, very, very slow, regularly 33 seconds between plays. And then Hartline who does he hire as his OC? Tim Beck from Coastal Carolina, who played at a breakneck, blazing tempo. So I want to know what they're going to do tempo-wise. So I'll be tuning into their game against Florida International for nothing more than just to see what the offense looks like, because I think that'll give us some value the rest of the way on totals for South Florida. I could see. I think that they do have some significant grabs in the portal. I think they beefed up the 2 deep on their defensive line pretty well. You're getting a few receivers in via the portal that I think can contribute. Michael Van Buren is an interesting case and a guy who's bounced around the SEC a time or two, so certainly can play at this level. I want to know what type of offense they're going to run and how fast they're going to run, so that way that'll give me some insight for totals. And, the only thing is it's just the hardest slate that you have to play in American Conference League play. I don't care what the non-conference is doing, and I know it's not overly difficult in the non-conference, but you go to Army, you go to UTSA, you go to East Carolina, Memphis comes in. You got to play a lot of these top teams that are projected top teams in this conference. You don't get a lot of the teams at the bottom, so it is one that could make for an interesting regular season win total result. You could have a real strong 8-4 team, or if they're very strong, it's 9-3 or so. So TBD on them. I don't really have a real firm, resolute opinion on South Florida. I think the hire will work. I think that the talent will eventually get to a point where these guys can continue to be one of those premier G6 teams. But I really need to know more about what they're going to do offensively, because whatever Hartline wants to do is not the same as what Tim Beck wants to do. So I'm really wondering why he hired him.
Yeah, maybe so. There could be some conflict there, and Alex Golesh did a pretty good job over there. But you have to understand that this is the recruiting grounds are also great where South Florida is. They always get
Exquisite.
They get dudes there, man. They're just forgotten about by Florida and Miami and Florida State and UCF. Yeah, there's just they get a lot of really good dudes that just grow when they hit freshman year in college, and they didn't quite grow yet in high school, and they're just beasts. And like I said, I do love the transfer, but here's what's funny, and I'm curious, like what the conference win total is because they're going to be favored in every single game. I think I don't have them as a dog in any game. That's why I kind of like over 8.5 at plus 115, and that's why I like the plus 800 to win the American. Because even though you are correct, they do have the hardest conference schedule when you get to conference, but Florida International, FCS opponent, Bowling Green. Those are wins, So I wonder if there's a way that you can even middle something with the conference wins. I don't know if they have them out for the smaller conferences yet.
Haven't seen it yet.
No, they don't have it yet. I'm really curious what that number could be because you can go, you can like if it's like a 6 or something, you can go under 6 and over 8.5 wins, so you can get 9, or something like that. 9 and only 5 or something like that. I don't know what they would have for conference wins, like 6 or 7 or whatever it's going to be. But it's an interesting situation to think about. But I like them.
Yeah, conference.
Go ahead.
And actually, depending on what the conference wins would be, that could end up being really interesting because they are going to be double-digit favorites in every non-conference game, and with a win total of 8.5, if they put out a 6 for conference wins,
or a 7 for sure,
you could go under that and over the regular season win total and probably win both. I do have them small dogs at UTSA and at Army.
Okay, so that's where you have it, and I have that. Those are the most challenging games, but it's not overwhelming in a situation where I think they're going to know how to play Army in the option. UTSA, I think, is maybe the trickier one. I think the loss would be more possible at UTSA. I have them as obviously a bigger, just a 2.5, 3-point favorite against UTSA away. So I maybe I'm too high on them, but I like them over 8.5 wins here. And yeah, I would, if you're going to get a big fat number in the conference wins, you go under that and hedge and maybe look at it that way. So let's think about that one. Let's go to Temple here. Now, Temple was an interesting team last year. I expected a little bit more out of them when they first started. Then they shit the bed completely against Oklahoma, but they're somewhat feisty at the end. They, at Army, ever since then Tulane and North Texas happened. But, I thought Temple kind of, first year coach, 5-7 record for Casey Keeler. That's a success for what Temple's been, right?
Very much so. And I think rather than just, or in addition to the win-loss record, when you look at how Temple competed in games, for 3 years under Stan Drayton, the offense was just so putrid. They had no intestinal fortitude in the trenches. The defensive line was soft. You could run the ball all over the field against Temple. And I thought Casey Keeler did a really nice job with some of his offseason objectives coming into the season last year, really trying to make this team tougher up front. And I think we saw that in situations like where they competed against Georgia Tech for a while. Playing Navy, they did really well. Playing Army, they lost by 1 point. Should have won the game, to be honest with you, and really did well in the trenches there. It didn't look very good at the end, playing against Tulane and then having to go to North Texas. But this team was really much more competitive than what we saw in 22, 23, and 24, where they finished 3-9 each season. I think we'll be interested to see what they do with the quarterback that comes in and some of the personnel on offense. They do have to replace some pieces on offense. The offensive line should be shored up. Temple should be a tough, physical team. I would envision that Temple looks a lot this year like Sam Houston State looked in 2024 or 2023 under Casey Keeler. I would imagine they're going to run the football. We should get some big-bodied tight ends, and they have a pair of tight ends that I think will do really well at creating mismatches both in the run game and pass receiving. But I would envision Temple to really be a tough football team that nobody, once the cat's out of the bag and people know what they're all about, people aren't going to want to play these guys. should have an opportunity. Rhode Island's a good FCS team, but they should have an opportunity to win the opener. And I think they can go to Toledo and win as well. So you could start 2-1. Schedule outside of that, UConn's winnable, Charlotte's winnable, UAB and Rice are winnable. So I think there's an opportunity for Temple here to do much better than what people think. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a bowl game. And again, I think if they beat a team like Memphis or East Carolina or South Florida on the road, there's an opportunity for Temple to make some noise in conference play. It's not one where I'm saying this is a lock, go bet the house on it or whatever, but I wouldn't be stunned at 50-1 if Temple was a team where you look up with 2 games left and they're 7-2 or 6-3, and it's like, holy smokes, these guys are really improved this year.
And yeah, 2 games left with Rice and Memphis, a rebuilt Memphis. That would be great. Well, your next 3 games are UAB, Rice, and Memphis after the Navy win. So that would be a very easy way to possibly cash that. What's funny, I'm at 6.7 wins with Temple, and I'm wondering why I didn't bet it. Maybe it's because there's the turnover. I don't know. I'm obviously different quarterback with Jackson Smolik. I'm not super high on him.
Well, you look at it last year too. Temple lost by 1 against Navy and 1 against Army. A worse Temple team played those 2 teams, a better Army team and a better Navy team, and there was other opportunities for Temple, and they were really, really close last season. I think that this is a team that can do it. Like I agree with your projection in being higher than what the average market shows.
Okay, maybe so. Maybe I should take that over then. What did I write about Temple? I'll read it right now here. This team improved to almost acceptable under Casey Keeler, but he didn't return as much defense or a quarterback. This could be Jackson Smolik from Washington State. He looks to be possibly the starter here. He does get most of the offensive line returning, I wrote, and I think overs for this team still. Unless I see the defense progress, I said. But, man, being at that number, and now that I'm very low on Toledo this year, and that's like their non-conference game. Rhode Island and Toledo will call Penn State the loss. But if they are so close to beating the 2 option teams, maybe they have it this year. I see the loss at South Florida, at East Carolina, and if they're really going to be good, 6 wins is a bowl. See, the team that really needs to get in the bowl is that second-year coach. And after winning 5 last year, you can see them progressing. So I'm going to write down Temple over 5.5. So I'm on your side here, and we'll shop that around unless any of you guys in the chat could do that for me. Right now, see if we kind of get it over 5.5 at a decent price. Now let's go to.
Hey, and I think old Temple linebacker Tyler Matakevich wants a word with you on just penciling in Penn State as a win. Temple hasn't had a lot of success there against the Nittany Lions, but they get those guys at home in a half-filled stadium. Maybe Penn State, Matt Campbell's got a knack to play in those tight, low-scoring games, underperforms against teams they should pound. Maybe Temple pulls one past them.
It's funny that's at home. It's at home. Listen to that. Oh, the Owls will be screaming. And I don't know. Maybe more Penn State people will show up. Shit. We'll see. That's funny, though. I love your optimism. I'm not going to call that, though. I'm definitely.
I'm not either.
Tulane, the Green Wave, obviously coming in from the big win last year. And then they got to play Ole Miss again for a second time. And they got donkey stomped in the against them in the playoffs. Which was foreseeable. I didn't think it was going to be that bad, but it was pretty bad. Will Hall, he's back at coaching. Look at that. He came back to coaching, and he was the OC last year, if you remember. What did I write about these guys? They're kind of like. I mean, it's weird. I think Sumrall definitely deserved the Florida coach. I think he's going to be great out there, actually. He's saying all the right things. They did retain a bunch of defensive players, but he's got a new defensive line this year. Rough non-conference schedule, I wrote, because you got Duke and at Kansas State. No, I think that Chris Gremillion comes from Houston, and he's going to compete for the starting job too, or is it? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be him or Caden Simonza?
I think, yeah, Caden Seamus was at Ball State, and Zion Chris, I think it's going to be one of those two. A very similar profile for either.
Yeah, what a cool name too, Zion. That's an awesome name. He's got a really hard name to put, Chris Gremillion. Imagine that on your jersey. No, I can't see Tulane repeating again, but interesting how Will Hall gets his next chance. He coached like over 100 games in the past.
Yeah, and had some circumstances that came up to cause him to get fired. We'll see how it goes here. Tulane is going to have a fairly decent offensive line. I think the skill position guys are going to take a step back. I don't have a tremendous amount of confidence in the receiving group, and quarterback play is also going to be down a notch from what they've had over the last couple of seasons, even going back to Michael Pratt and Retzlaff before that. So they're down at quarterback. I think they'll try to run the football a little bit more here. The defensive line is where they're really going to experience the pain, because that defensive line last year and in the previous couple of seasons, they had so many guys that could get to the quarterback and create havoc, whether it be registering sacks or pressures, hurries, throwaways, whatever else. And I just don't foresee that Tulane's going to be able to enforce their will like that on their opponents. I think the secondary and the back seven will be on par or maybe even a little better than what they had last season, but that unit will ultimately suffer in the metrics because of a lack of pass rush. And when you look at the schedule, I do think they're going to struggle against Duke and Kansas State. Should have no problem with Southern Miss. But look at those first three conference games. It is murderer's row right out of the chute. At Army, Memphis, and then UTSA come in. You'll know immediately after those three games if this team has any leg to stand on or not, because the remaining part of the schedule is fairly manageable in my opinion. But if they lose all three of those, or if they go 1-2, probably not competing for a conference championship this season. And I think thanks again, Bobby, for chiming in there. Receivers have been decent in the past, but not a tremendous amount of wow factor. But they are in a recruiting hotbed, like you said. That is absolutely true. I don't know. I think the offense is going to lose a little bit of the zest and a little bit of the punch. I didn't think the offense was overly good last season. I thought they were very, very fortunate in a couple of the games they played. I mean, the turnovers that the defense forced and the opponent mistakes against Northwestern and Duke, they were so fortunate to come back against South Alabama. You could make a case that this team stunk. They should have lost to East Carolina. They should have lost to Army.
Memphis,
Army
they should have lost.
Dead to rights.
Memphis hurt their quarterback that game, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure Memphis's quarterback got hurt when they were hosting Tulane. So that was a shame that happened. Yeah. Just kind of thinking back. Yeah, they only rank 127th in returning offense of production, and Tulane also ranks 117th in total returning production. So that's really what it is. But then I looked at the 247 transfer portal. It's 99th. I expect Tulane's number to be 75 or something, So they're a little bit lower on the transfer portal too. I don't think a lot of people like Will Hall. He was terrible at Southern Miss, actually. And I was looked at most of the games he coaches was in the FCS or Division II. But no, I'm definitely not low on them. And I do agree, Bobby. There should be great receivers down there. Anthony Brown-Stevens is the returning guy, really. That's, for sure. But not super high on Tulane. Now, am I higher than them on some other teams? Yes, but not like what they did last year. UAB. Now, UAB is interesting because Chris Mortensen's son, Alex Mortensen's the head coach here. He had to take over last year, if you guys remember. And Ryan Burton enters his fourth season. And he's going to start now, I believe, 6'2", 200-pound quarterback. He was okay last year, but this is UAB we're talking about. They don't return anybody on defense. This team they've always been just terrible on defense. So it used to be overs that we bet with them just because you knew this defense was so bad that the other team might get the over themselves. But they only rank 126th in total returning production. Alex Mortensen's a great story with what happened to his dad. Remember Chris Mortensen on ESPN and all that. After beating Memphis is how he really got that job. But I do like some of the Georgia transfers. I just think that the defense is going to continue to be terrible. and it's going to be a tough conference schedule as well.
Yeah, I don't really have a tremendous amount of meat and potatoes to anything I'm going to say here about UAB at current. I don't know how you can play this team. It was such a crap show with Trent Dilfer, and they held on to him too long. It was just a hire that was never going to work. He had so many disparaging remarks about the group of five and about his team and blaming other people. And it sucked overall.
It was...
Honestly, I'm really stunned they didn't call Brian Vincent from UL Monroe, the guy who should have had the job. That's the guy they should have hired. Alex Mortensen, yeah, it could work. This is a complete reset year, though, where you have to kind of you have to wipe the whiteboard clean. You have to unlearn some of the bad that was procured in the culture for so long at UAB. And so I think it is a true year zero. The win total is low at 3.5. I actually do have these guys favored in a couple of games, though. I think they'll beat Charlotte, they'll beat FCS Samford, and they will have an opportunity to beat Louisiana Monroe when they host them in week 2. So there's your 3 wins. Are they going to get skunked in the rest of the 9 games? Probably so. And they're going to be heavy underdogs, double-digit underdogs in every single game outside of those 3. It's really hard for me. I don't love a lot of the talent. I thought that they kind of did less with more offensively. They had some good pieces with Kitna there at quarterback, Iverson Hooks last season, a few other guys that I thought BB was one of the running backs. I thought they had some pop. And they just really never made much of it offensively. So a lot of unknowns on the offensive and defensive line. Quarterback situation is kind of unproven. I'm not really sure what zest we're going to get in the skill positions. It's just a team I'm really not looking to do a ton on. I will probably fade them in the opener at Illinois.
Fair enough. Yeah, don't remind me about Preston Stone, Mason. I think I was on that shitty ass bet as well. I don't know. Perfect home run spot, and then you score 3 points against your old team. Seriously, how pathetic was that, Preston Stone? Yeah, probably under that. I'm at 3.01 wins back to UAB, and it was just I don't see a fourth win. I like you said. There's just I mean I have like a lot of 0% chance to wins. And maybe at the end if they can get a little tricky if they get North Texas, and North Texas is worse than we thought, but. No, I still have them probably getting smoked, and I'm going to call this a honeymoon year too. Even though Mortensen took over last year, I don't think he's going to have the pressure this year. UTSA Roadrunners. Now, this is the most interesting team to me last year. I was very disappointed in them last year, losing to Texas State after how well they showed at Texas A&M. I thought they showed really well at Texas A&M. Then they get Texas State at home, freaking lose the game. Drove me nuts. But
lost Army at home late. Ugh.
I know. Just
gross.
It's like you feel like you see something against A&M, but it turned out A&M was a little bit overrated too, even though they had the easiest schedule last year. No, there's an overrated team as A&M, I think. No, I mean I like that they returned their quarterback Owen McCown. This team doesn't have a whole lot of defense to return, but that defense kept them in a ton of games last year. I thought that defense was quite underrated last year. Their bulk of their defense, though, like I said, left. But, situation where I'm kind of with the market on UTSA.
Yeah, I mean, strong quarterback play from Owen McCown. I think the offensive and defensive trench, which is Jeff Traylor's specialty, is really going to get back to that triangle of toughness sort of mantra that he preached for so long at UTSA. Skill guys are a little bit down, so they do need some wide receivers to emerge. It seems like they always do. And the schedule is manageable, and I think they have such a home field advantage playing in the Dome, and they usually play significantly better at home. And so with USF...
Unless they're playing Texas State.
Yeah. I mean, generally, they're a really, really solid performing team at home. And the offense is very, very explosive. I like the running back, Will Henderson, coming back. I think he'll be a really solid running back. Could lead the conference in rushing yards. I think he had almost 900 yards last season for UTSA. I think it's a fun bunch. I think it's a group that, you can find some spots to hit the overs and watch them put up 55 points and maybe allow 35. The defense has not maintained its level of play that was so good for so long under Jeff Traylor. Maybe they get back to that a little bit. They have a significant amount of departing talent defensively, and so they're going to have to score a bunch of points offensively, which I think they can do. And I think some of the defensive line transfers can hit. So we'll see on them. I think if you want to bet these guys over the win total, I would support that. If you want to bet them to win the conference, I think UTSA is a team that'll be right there at the end.
Yeah, I think.
But you'll again,
I got them
with the win bet though. With the win total bet though, you'll know before October's done because they play USF, Navy, and Tulane all in succession. If that doesn't go well, that could be a problem. If it does go well, the last four they should be win, and they will be heavy favorites in.
I wish they didn't lose so much defense, but I do say, at least being 57th in returning production with a group of 16, that's pretty good this day and age, because, you're not getting completely looted. I was really disappointed that they didn't get a better bowl game than against FIU last year. It would have been nice to see them smack some sort of like an Iowa or somebody, some middle of the road meddling Big Ten team, or
that doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Any of them, it would have been nice to see. No, last year was a great year for them, I thought, and some really head scratcher wins, or losses. I mean, every game was a blowout. It seems like minus after losing to Texas State by 7. I mean, you're looking at like 48-20. Colorado State was weird though at 17-6, but there's like 61-13, 17-55, 48-26, and there's losses too against South Florida, 23-55, 28-7, 58-24. It's just it's like if you just bet the alt lines on or against them, it would have been a hell of a year. This is. I mean, I don't think that UTSA is going to wow anyone on defense, but I do have them probably as my second best team, really close to Navy in this conference. So what does Bobby have to say? Comically or painfully awful, depending upon who you are. I think was he still talking about UTSA? I don't know what he's talking about there. Oh, no, he was talking about that the Tulane situation.
Northwestern.
Preston Stone. See, this time of year we get reminded of our terrible bets, So that happens all the time as well. So I appreciate it, guys. We need to remember these things, obviously.
Hey, you know what though, Kiev? I'm not too proud to admit it. We're so bad at this that we are wrong 4 of every 10 times.
We can laugh it off too. And that right now you can definitely laugh it off. And being wrong 4.2 times is fine out of 10 for me, whatever the number exactly is. But I had a good season, and as long as we're positive, we should be okay. But it's that shit that makes us from great season to good season. That's what that's what
Yes.
I'm talking about. So yeah, thanks for talking about that. All right, well, hey man, great breakdowns of what we do know in the American, and I always want to challenge Josh. And it's the best guys I bring on when it comes to the Group of 5 stuff because that's where the least amount of information is. Anybody can talk the big conferences, but this is such a talent that Josh has. That's why I bring him on for these challenging ones. So thank you for talking that with me, and I definitely have some more bets to lay or to place. Any long shots that you like, and I'm already told you I took 8-1 for USF to win it. Any long shots that you like?
My top 7 teams in this league are all power rated within 2 points of each other. So you're really going to see scenarios where it could come down to tiebreakers, or it's going to be a play here, a play there. I could see about 7.5 or 8-1. I could see taking a stab with Army. And then as far as long shots, I firmly believe between Tulsa, Temple, and FAU, one of those 3 will have a chance to vie for the conference title in early November. May not end up shaking out that way at the end of the month, but I think between Tulsa, Temple, and FAU, figure out which team you like best and put a little bit of fun money on that at 35, 40, or 50-1.
All right, well, there you go. That's fun. That is fun. Get one of them to the championship, which is very, very possible. And looking at that schedule here for FAU and Tulsa, anything can happen here at the end. Temple, especially, how you have UAB, Rice, and at maybe a decimated Memphis team at the end. Let's go week 0 now, my friend. I know we don't have a ton of time left, but let's talk some bets on week 0. And I discussed this with you already. I took NC State plus 6.5 against Virginia. The way I looked at it was you have a situation where you actually have a returning quarterback for NC State. And guess what? They beat Virginia last year when Virginia had a better quarterback. Now, I will say, I like what Tony Bennett did in the transfer portal. I think it was a fantastic job. Or Tony Elliott, I should say, of who he brought in there. But the thing about Virginia is not only do they lose a quarterback, Bo Pribula's transferring in. He's more of a running guy. I'm not so sure that's Virginia's style. They have new receivers. Their defense was never their strong point. It's a situation where NC State, I think, with the quarterback that beat them last year in C.J. Bailey, who's a hell of a talent, by the way. The dude's tall. He's fast. You saw him just single-handedly take games over when he had to. Dave Doran has a sleeper-type NC State team, in my opinion. I think 6.5 is way too much, and it's on a neutral site, too. So I'm going with NC State.
I love it, man. I fully agree with grabbing the points. I think North Carolina State can win this game. I think when you look at Virginia, and nobody was a bigger fan of Virginia last season than me, and the reason why is because I bet and gave out Virginia to win the conference 200-1. Oh, so close to getting to the window.
I've been texting
And every single week, Virginia was just such a team of destiny, pulling the rabbit out of their hat, escaping Florida State in double overtime, finding a way to beat Louisville, finding a way to beat North Carolina at the wire in overtime, going to Cal and eking out a win against Virginia Tech. I mean, every single week it was just, well, that's not necessarily sustainable football. I don't think Virginia was better than everybody else. I think they had high variance football that ended up going their way, and I think some of those breaks go the other way this year for the Wahoos. And I think North Carolina State can win this game. So that's a play I actually do like. It's a play I've made.
All right, little money line action on that. And that's kind of coming down here, too. So this can get to 4.5, 4 pretty quick. So make sure you get on that. It's only plus 145 on the money line so far. So it looks like the sharper money is on NC State right here. I think it should be a maximum of 2 points. Virginia should be favored in this game. Any week zero besides this one that we agreed on?
Yeah, I'll be quick about this. I took 3 of them. I took North Carolina and TCU under. I took it at 51.5, still okay at 49.5. I know Bobby Petrino comes in at OC for North Carolina, but I'm just not necessarily sure that this is the situation where you deploy the high-octane, fast-paced offense, and I don't trust our friend Billy Edwards Jr. to run the show in the fast-paced environment. TCU has a very strong defensive line. I think that we'll see that defensive line dictate the terms. North Carolina is going to have to run the football, and they have a great running back in Damon June. Hand the ball to him. On the other side with TCU, Jaden Craig comes in from Harvard, very talented quarterback, very good FCS quarterback, made some plays, some highlight plays at Harvard, and also missed some throws with wide open receivers. So that's going to be the thing for them. And I don't necessarily know that we see TCU run a high-flying, fast-paced offense in this opener. TCU is going to make a very concerted effort to run the football. I like the under in this one. Weather could always play an issue being across the pond. Anything 49.5 or higher, I like the under there. I actually took San Jose State and USC over. I bet it early at 55.5. I went back for more at 57.5. And I think we're good to 61.5. It's my favorite play of week 0. San Jose State, USC over. San Jose State's defense is going to be absolutely atrocious. Last season, they were shredded. Anytime they played a competent passing attack, they cannot stop the pass. They can't stop the run. They were gashed in the run game all season. And the offense with Kendi Amatalolo, they're still running the spread and shred. So they're going to be running a fast-paced, high-octane offense. The quarterback, Luke Weaver, comes in from Hawaii. He can get the job done from the standpoint of being able to run this unique air raid type of run-and-shoot offense. But USC, go back over the last 5 years when USC has been up against a weaker foe. Lincoln Riley does not take his foot off the gas. He'll get work for the backup quarterback. Jaden Maeva is breaking in 5 new receivers, so I think we're going to see a lot of passing. And, 5 years running, documented history of these in-game scenarios, throwing bombs up by 4 or 5 touchdowns, scoring 14, 17, 21 fourth-quarter points. The points are coming here for USC. I think San Jose State will score 10 to 14, but I think USC could score 55 on their own, so I like the over in that one. The last one I'll talk about for week 0, I like Jacksonville State going to North Dakota State, catching 8.5. I think it's even teams. Jacksonville State's formidable in the trenches. I like their quarterback, Caden Creel. Anybody who knows me knows I love FCS football, and I watch it very thoroughly. North Dakota State is a very, very good, obviously one of the best FCS teams, but it's been a little bit of a different style. They were not as dominant in the trenches last season, and this season they do not have an experienced quarterback. They don't have the big play receiver like Bryce Lance, who caught passes for 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns. They just don't have that. So we're going to get slower pace from Jacksonville State this year with the new offensive coordinator coming in. North Dakota State also runs very slow. I think these teams are equipped to kind of handle each other, so I like a lower scoring game. But getting 8.5 at Jacksonville State is absolutely ridiculous. North Dakota State is going to find some pain this year with the rigors of a 12-game FBS schedule, and I think it starts in the opener. Jacksonville State gives them a game. It's two even teams. I think it comes down to a field goal late.
I am all over Jacksonville State. That was my other one, dude. You took it, but there you go. I mean, 8.5. Are you serious? North Dakota State is a great FCS program, but they are not returning almost anybody in this season coming on in. It's a tough year for them to come in because I don't think they're going to come in slamming it. I think they're going to come in kind of rebuilding, which is always a tough thing to do. It's all about timing. You know, it's nice to come in like James Madison did and when other teams did. But a few years back when Jacksonville State came in, you know, they're a very hard, hit you in the mouth, run heavy type team. And I think there's just going to be too tricky. And 8.5, way too many points. I also like the money line on this one. So I would jump on that too. And this is going to start moving as well. I think that you're going to start seeing this. I wouldn't be shocked if this closes at 7. So grab 8.5 and grab a little money line and, be about it because Josh and I love this play. And what we also love, Step on a Duck. Man, you're the best, Josh. Thank you so much for coming on and breaking down. I always go over time with you, but it's always okay because you have so many great things to say. Where can our listeners get your wonderful information?
Yeah, the Action Network. So we're knee-deep in written conference previews and regular season win previews. We're starting our pod series here coming up at the end of the month where we'll have 20 podcasts dropping. I'm on the Kyle Kerm Show on YouTube live twice a week on Wednesday and Friday nights. You and I will be doing some fun things with our friend Kyle Hunter on Friday nights coming up during the season, so they can catch us there. I'm on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast with our friend Tim Murray. A lot of places you can find me if you want to talk some college football this fall, and I'll be a regular here on your great program as well, Kiev. So I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely, you will. Make sure you guys check out Step on a Duck. Thanks, guys, for checking in the chat. We're going to be college football every single week as well as some NFL. We'll be talking to you soon. Thanks, Josh. Want to become a better bettor? Want to get on a path to handicapping professionally? Start by tracking every pick with full transparency using the odds breakers partnered with TallySight. These platforms verify your record, grade every play, and showcase long-term performance so you can build real credibility, not just screenshots and hindsight claims. If you're serious about leveling up, proving your edge, and establishing yourself as a professional handicapper, this is where your reputation begins. Just go to theoddsbreakers.com and click on live odds/pick tracking to get started. Join us in your handicapping journey. All right. Well, I like South Florida over the 8.5 wins, and I like them at plus 115 for that, and a little plus 800 to win the conference. I love what Heartline is doing down there, bringing in massive transfers at a recruiting bed that has been fantastic all over the years. Man, Josh, I got to get on some of these things. Cincinnati under 3.5. I like that for the conference. Memphis under 7.5. Lay some juice. Navy also. I like them. I like Navy under their wins. The only one I like over is Temple. So me and Josh are going to be all over that one as well. And, of course, week 0, NC State plus 6.5. And then, obviously, Jacksonville State plus 8.5 still sitting there. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We'll be back next week with some more college football and some NFL. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the weekend. And go get some winners. If you live outside of Nevada, make sure you go to footballcontest.com so they can enter all of your picks on time for every single football contest in the state that you enter. Use the promo code OB for $50 off all of your proxy fees.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.